Good day. The topic of my report: Conceptual and Terminological Apparatus in the Field of Land Use Policy Implementation at the Local Level. An important factor in the development of any scientific theory is the formation of a clear conceptual and categorical apparatus and unambiguous interpretation of the relevant concepts and categories. Scientific research is no exception, particularly in terms of land use problems at the local level, which are on the borderline of geographical, agricultural, environmental, economic, and legal sciences. The applied nature of this area determines the peculiarities of interpreting certain scientific concepts. Together, they form the conceptual and terminological apparatus of the study. Currently, research in the field of environmental economics, and in particular the implementation of land use policy at the local level, has gained significant development in Ukraine. In view of this, the problem of improving the existing terminology in this field of knowledge is of particular relevance. Land use governance is defined by scholars as the rules, processes, and structures by which decisions are made about access to and use of land resources, the means used to implement and enforce such decisions, and the ways in which competing interests in land use are managed. Knowledge is of particular relevance. The term governance can be used in several contexts, such as corporate governance, international governance, national governance, and local governance. Land governance involves decision-making, implementation, conflict resolution, and includes closely interrelated activities to manage land and natural resources for sustainable development. Land management is the process of utilizing land resources to the best effect. In this context, it is necessary to consider the paradigm of land use management. Land use management is considered through land policy, land information infrastructure, and land management functions in ensuring sustainable development. And the land use management paradigm is the cornerstone of the modern theory of land management, which defines the principles and processes that determine land management. The essence of the paradigm is that the correct construction of land use management components will allow the implementation of national land policy, and the interconnection of its elements will contribute to sustainable development. Researchers study various aspects of land use, management, and ownership, including state management of agricultural sector development, features of land use policy, improving the efficiency of agricultural land use, economic, organizational, and social aspects of land use, information support for land use, pricing in the process of forming the market turnover of agricultural land, environmental, economic, and social consequences of the transformation of land relations. A key element of land relations is agricultural land, which is the basis of the country's economic potential and plays a crucial role in the development of agricultural production and the provision of the population with the necessary food. At the same time, scientists have different views on the definition and role of land resources in the context of rapidly changing market conditions, corporatization of agricultural business, and expansion of economic activity. A person cannot create without land, because it is the material on which and with the help of which products are created, the results of his or her activity. Agricultural land has always been and remains a necessary condition and component of the process of reproduction of material values, including those not directly created in agriculture. Domestic scientists call land resources a factor of socio-economic development and the basis for the expanded reproduction of national wealth. At the same time, the issue of ensuring effective land use, ownership and disposal of land, and establishing relations between owners of agricultural land and tenants is still controversial. When formulating the main approaches to defining the category of land relations, scholars mostly use the triad of concepts: ownership, use, and disposal of land. Land relations involve the ownership and use of land as a means of production, are an element of production relations of society, and are based on the forms of ownership of land and means of production. Land relations are social relations that develop between business entities in the process of managing the land fund regarding the use, disposal, and ownership of land as an object and subject of agricultural activity. The development of land use policy implies changes in the relations between landowners, enterprises, organizations, institutions, state and local authorities, and citizens regarding the ownership, use, disposal, and management of land, subject to state regulation and promotion of scientifically sound land use. Such transformations are taking place in order to adapt to the global competitive environment and are aimed at systematically addressing existing economic, environmental, and social problems of land use. The main subjects of land relations are the owner, land user, and tenant. A component of land relations is land ownership, a form of ownership that ensures actual power over land. Ownership is an unlimited time period for a resource to belong to a certain entity, its actual dominance over the property. Land ownership has certain peculiarities related to the specifics of agricultural activities. Limited space, separation of land from the environment, close interconnection with other components of nature. Impossibility of withdrawal and transfer to another party, ability of soil cover to self-development and self-renewal as a biological system and means of production. There are various definitions of the concept of land tenure in domestic and foreign literature. In the field of land relations, this gives grounds to define land ownership as the right of the owner to carry out economic activities on the land plot and to extend his or her power to all other persons, excluding them from appropriating its useful properties. The right to property implies the freedom guaranteed by the Constitution, which consists in the possibility and ability of a person to acquire ownership of a land plot in accordance with its functional purpose in certain sizes, as well as to occupy it in the process of performing legal actions to establish boundaries on the ground in accordance with the established procedure. Thus, the definition of property rights includes two criteria: factual, the ability to have a thing under one's dominion in Roman law, and volitional awareness of the possibility and desire to dominate a thing in one's own interests. The study of these issues has been particularly intensified in the agricultural sector in the context of developing a mechanism for introducing an agricultural land market. As is well known, agricultural land can be privately state-owned and communally owned. Subjects of communal ownership of land plots are territorial communities that exercise this right directly or through local self-government bodies. The subject of state ownership of land is the state on behalf of which the relevant state authorities act. The relationship between the forms of ownership of agricultural land tends to change as a result of historical events, the formation of the political system, and the specifics of land reforms, which have their own characteristics in each country. Land use is considered to be the primary form of land relations, which gives the right to use a land plot for personal purposes and to appropriate the results of economic activity. It is defined in three aspects. First, the use of a land plot in accordance with the procedure established by law. Secondly, the use of the unified land fund provided by the state or acquired in ownership or lease for economic and other needs. Thirdly, the object of economic, environmental, urban planning, agricultural, and other land relations, for which the land user has been issued a document certifying the right to a land plot with defined boundaries, area, and composition of property objects. The absence of one of these components calls into question the legality of land use. At the present stage, the land use system is characterized by functional diversity by forms of ownership, land categories, and groups of land users. Relative stability and certain dynamism, transformation of the structure of land, change of landowners and land users. Therefore, in the context of the transformation of land relations, the principles of complexity and systemicity should be met by the formation of land use systems at least three levels: national, regional, and local. The essence of this approach is to consider this problem from the general to the particular. At the same time, regional land use systems should be developed on an alternative basis as models that would serve as guidelines for choosing optimal solutions on the ground. Taking into account the direction of state policy, different forms of management, social stratification, different availability of production resources for commodity producers, and competition. Such models should compare favorably with the usual set of interrelated technological, technical, economic, social, natural restoration, and environmental measures. To do this, it is necessary to bring agricultural production processes in line with different landscape conditions and environmental laws, as well as to eliminate the causes of certain violations. The degree of adequacy of such land use models depends on the degree to which the interrelationships between the elements of the system are identified. In our opinion, the land use system should include three main subsystems: subject land users, landowners, the state, object land, land plot, technological land use itself. At the same time, each of the subsystems has its own internal structure, which consists of a number of components and determines a wide range of activities related to the use of land resources and the formation of adequate mechanisms for the implementation of the state's socio-economic policy. The efficiency of the system as a whole depends on the degree of their integration. The results of the study of the essence of the conceptual apparatus of land relations give grounds to assert that an important tool for studying the phenomenon of land use at the local level is its conceptual and terminological apparatus, which is currently in the process of formation. All the variety of concepts and terms related to the subject of research can be divided into two main groups. On the one hand, these are concepts and terms from the field of land management, on the other the conceptual and terminological apparatus of land use at the local level. Land relations have an objective character and are a socio-economic and environmental process of ownership, use, and disposal of land. In connection with the establishment of a plurality of forms of land ownership, the inclusion of a certain part of land in the market circulation system in the process of concluding civil law transactions with land. These relations, while remaining essentially land, acquire a property character. The concept of land is central to the study of land use, which together with such derivative concepts as land use, land management, land cadastre, land resources, land plots, spatial forms of land use et forms a conceptual and terminological system that is still being formed. Thanks for your attention.